Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Akama Sarva Kamova.
Akama Sarva Kamo
Moksha Kama Udharati.
Moksha Kama Dharati.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Akama Sarva Kamova.
Akama Sarva Kamo
Moksha Kama Udharati.
Moksha Kama Dharati.
Tirena Bhakti Yogena.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajeta Purusham Param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the Personality of Godhead. Nice instruction. Pure Devotional Service, Chapter 3. And nice long 2-page purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Purushottama, or the Supreme Personality. It is He only who can award liberation to the impersonalists by absorbing such aspirants in the Brahmajyoti, the bodily rays of the Lord. The Brahmajyoti is not separate from the Lord, as the glowing sun ray is not independent of the sun disk. Therefore, one who desires to merge into the supreme impersonal Brahmajyoti must also worship the Lord by Bhakti Yoga. As recommended here in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Yoga is especially stressed here as the means of all perfection. In the previous chapters, it has been stated that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, and in the same way, in this chapter, it is emphatically declared that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of the different varieties of worship of the different demigods. Bhakti Yoga, therefore, thus being the supreme means of self-realization, is recommended here. Everyone must, therefore, seriously take up the methods of Bhakti Yoga, even though one aspires for material enjoyment or liberation from material bondage. Pretty emphatic. Paragraph. A kama is one who has no material desire, a living being naturally being part and parcel of the Supreme Whole, Purusham Purnam, has its natural function to serve the Supreme Being, just as the parts and parcels of the body or the limbs of the body are naturally meant to serve the complete body. Desirelessness means, therefore, not to be inert like the stone, but to be conscious of one's actual position and thus desire satisfaction only from the Supreme Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this desirelessness as Bhajaniya Paramam Purusha Sukha Matram Sva Sukhatvam in his Sandarbha. This means that one should feel happy only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. This intuition of the living being is sometimes manifested even during the conditioned stage of a living being in the material world, and such intuition is expressed in the manner of altruism, philanthropy, socialism, communism, etc., by the undeveloped minds of less intelligent men. In the mundane field, such an outlook of doing good to others in the form of society, community, family, country, or humanity is a partial manifestation of the same original feeling in which a pure living entity feels happiness by the happiness of the Supreme Lord. Such superb feelings were exhibited by the damsels of Rajabhumi for the happiness of the Lord. The gopis loved the Lord without any return. And this is the perfect exhibition of the akama spirit. Kama spirit, or the desire for one's own satisfaction, is fully exhibited in the material world, whereas The spirit of kama is fully exhibited in the spiritual world. Paragraph. Thoughts of becoming one with the Lord or being merged in the Brahmajyoti can also be exhibitions of the kama spirit if they are desires for one's own satisfaction to be free from the material miseries. A pure devotee does not want liberation so that he may be relieved from the miseries of life. Even without so-called liberation, a pure devotee is aspirant for the satisfaction of the Lord. Influenced by the kama spirit, Arjuna declined to fight in the Kurukshetra battle because he wanted to save his relatives for his own satisfaction. But, being a pure devotee, he agreed to fight on the instruction of the Lord because he came to his senses and realized that satisfaction of the Lord at the cost of his own satisfaction was his primary duty. Thus he became a kama. That is the perfect stage of a perfect living being. So beautiful. Paragraph. Udaradhi means one who has a broader outlook. People with desires for material enjoyment worship small demigods, and such intelligence is condemned in Bhagavad Gita 7.20 as Rita Jnana, the intelligence of one who has lost his senses. One cannot obtain any result from demigods without getting sanction from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, a person with a broader outlook can see that the ultimate authority is the Lord. Even for material benefits, under the circumstances, one with a broader outlook, even with the desire for material enjoyment or for liberation, should take to the worship of the Lord directly, and everyone, whether an akama or sakama or mokshakama, should worship the Lord with great expedience. This implies that bhakti yoga may be perfectly administered without any mixture of karma and gyan, as the unmixed sun ray is very forceful and therefore called tivra. Similarly, bhakti yoga of hearing, chanting, etc. may be performed by one and all, regardless of inner motive. Tivra, in the word for word, is with great force. So I'll read the last sentence again. As the unmixed sun ray is very forceful and is therefore called tivra, similarly unmixed bhakti yoga of hearing, chanting, etc. may be performed by one and all, regardless of inner motive. It's a little perplexing. Inner motive. The definition, Rupa Goswami's definition of bhakti seems to run contrary to this. Let's see if we can sort it out. His definition of bhakti, found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is what bhakti isn't and what bhakti is. And what bhakti is, intention is everything. Or you could say motive, the purpose for which bhakti is performed. Now, that's describing uttama bhakti, or unmixed devotion, and then supposing devotion is mixed, because that's what this verse is speaking about, mixed. Supposing someone has a desire for material enjoyment, supposing someone has a desire for freedom from material entanglement, supposing someone has desires for mystic powers. Those are desires. And unmixed or pure bhakti is without motive. So supposing one has a motive, that's what this verse is describing. They, such a desiring this, that, or the other thing, must connect with bhakti, at least touch it. In other words, mixed. Karma Mishra Bhakti, Gyan Mishra Bhakti, and Siddhi Mishra Bhakti, wanting mystic siddhis. Why? Because everything comes from one source. So you can't get something without going to that source, even if it's indirectly. Like, for example, the worship of demigods. I mean, Prabhupada has a sharp way of describing worship of demigods. The small demigods. People with desires for material enjoyment worship small demigods. And such intelligence is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 7:20 as Hritajnana, the intelligence of one who has lost his senses. And why Hritajnana? Because they've lost the sense. They lost the sense that the demigods can't deliver anything without the sanction of the source of everything. Or they can deliver whatever they can deliver through the sanction of the source of everything, the Supreme. They get their empowerment and their sanction to, Bhaktisiddhanta calls them gift-giving gods. And they can give gifts, but they can't do so independently. And therefore, even those who are demigod worshippers recommended that they acknowledge Vishnu as the authority from whom the demigods get their power to do what they do. Is it possible that one can worship demigods without that acknowledgement? Sure. It's called, the field of the material energy. People do things without acknowledgement of the source of everything. That deluding potency is there. And therefore the recommendation is direct, Tivra Bhakti, because the rays of the sun are forceful or powerful, and acknowledging that the rays of the sun are forceful and powerful, then connect with the rays of the sun, connect with bhakti, and because that bhakti connects with the source. The rays are forceful because they come from the source, the sun. And many, many rays, very forceful. So, saying the same thing in another way, it's same thing in another way. The whole of the Vedas, including demigod worship and searching for liberation, the impersonal liberation, aspiring for that. The phrase that's popular or common, become one with. Become one with. Become one with the Supreme, become one with God, become one with it all, become one with. That's the abdication of one's identity and accepting one's identity as the all, become one with, merging with different ways of different language that describes that aspiration. And they remain on the material platform. Even that one remains on the material platform. How? Because it's a separate desire. This connects with a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakale Ashanta. Ashanta means not peaceful. Shanti means peaceful. Ashanta is one who is not peaceful. They're not peaceful when they have desire, kama, mukti, material, mukti, the impersonal kind of liberation, siddhi, mystic powers, sakale, ashanta, mukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakale, ashanta, separate. It connects with, similarly, it connects with Bhakti Siddhanta's strong, maybe strident statement that in this material world there's no love. And the reason he gives is because there's always separate interest. The separate interest is the bhakti, mukti, siddhi, kami. So love where there's separate interest is mixed. It's not what real love is. Real love is unmixed. Real bhakti is unmixed. So what's speaking of here in this verse, in the Bhagavatam, is mixed. Whether one is akama, without material desire, akama, sarva kama, all material desire, moksha kama, a desire for liberation. Whatever one's position is, one should tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. One should accept that worship of purusham param. Purusha means person, a man or a human, a being, and in this context it's the Lord, the Supreme Lord, purusham purnam, the complete person, or as the word is there in the purport, purushottama, purusha uttama. Purusha uttama, or para tattva. I just came across with making this presentation yesterday morning to the Chinese devotees about the four brothers in Ramayana, and each of them had a certain characteristic. And Ramachandra's characteristic is and this is the Sri Vaishnava picture, para tattva, para tattvam. He's the tvam, establishing the characteristic of the Supreme Being. And the others, they're manifestations of the Supreme Being in the mood of the servant of the Supreme Being. They're manifestations of the Supreme Being in the mood of the worshipper. So one is Lakshman, this is just a little education. He is Sheshatvam. He is completely attached to being in service to Ram. To the extent that when Ram says, I'm going to the forest, you stay here and take care of our mothers, he says, I'm going with you. I want to be engaged in your service. Our other brothers, they can look after our mothers. I'm going with you. And so Ram accepted, you can come with me. But there's another paratantriyam that's Bharata. And when Ram said, you go back to Ayodhya and rule the kingdom, he had a clever way of doing it. He was doing it on behalf of Ram by worshipping his shoes, and the shoes sit on the throne, not him. But he is obedient to the instructions of. Doesn't have to be in the presence of. He is obedient to the instructions of. And then the description, this is the Sri Vaishnava outlook, they have these nice terms, is Shatrugna and Dasyatvam. So that Tvam is having the quality or characteristic of something. So he has the characteristic of serving the devotee. Shatrugna's position was not serving Ram directly or serving the instructions of Ram, serving the devotees of Ram. Dasa dasa anudas, that Mahaprabhu is teaching. Dasyatvam. So these have, in the spiritual realm, there's diversity, which is nice. And although they're brothers and so united, each of them confined by, well, Ram's confined by his dedication to virtue or dharma. And of course, there's other emotions, but it's guided by that dedication to dharma. And then the others, their service to the Supreme in different moods, which is, they're all perfect. Yet, the commentators say, Shatrughna is especially appreciated because he was prepared to serve the devotee, which makes him even more dear to the Lord than one who's serving the Lord. You serve the servant of the Lord, automatically and naturally it makes one very dear to the Lord. Now one's heart has to be oriented to that spiritual position to feel it, but it's nonetheless a fact from the position of tattva. Okay, so back to the verse. The chapter is pure devotional service. So going back, Canto 2, Chapter 1 is a description of the universal form. And after describing this amazing feature of the universal form, there's a shift in focus from the universal form to the feature of Paramatma. And then there's a shift from the feature of Paramatma to the feature of Bhagavan. And the feature of Bhagavan is focused by the means of bhakti. So pure devotional service. So what's pure devotional service? And that's what the chapter is about. So this is saying the mixed, even if one has a mixed position, engage in bhakti. Tivra bhakti, because it's so tivra, it's so forceful, it can purify the mix and leave one with shuddha or uttam bhakti. So the verse, one of the terms in the verse is udara di. Di, it indicates intelligence, and udara means broad intelligence. So the person with broad intelligence, even they have a mix, I need to fulfill my mix by going to the Supreme and rendering service. Then the condemnation is worshipping demigods without that intelligence. I just worship the demigods, they're gift-giving persons, and I don't see who's behind them. I don't even acknowledge. There's no need to, because I get what I want, and that's not broad intelligence. And the broad intelligence is, even I want something, I go to God for that something. Or the bestowers of gifts, because they bestow gifts on behalf of God. So in other words, this whole chapter is helping Maharaj Parikshit and similarly helping the audience of Bhagavatam, us, to understand what the essence of pure devotional service is. There's material consciousness with material desire in 3 categories. And there's the mix of those desires with devotional service, and then there's unmixed. The goal is to come to unmixed. find it very interesting. I'll just read it again. Bhakti yoga may be perfectly administered without any mixture of karma and gyan, as the unmixed sun ray is very forceful and is therefore called tivra. Similarly, unmixed bhakti yoga of hearing, chanting, etc. may be performed by one and all, regardless of his inner motive. That phrase caught my attention. Regardless of inner motive. It requires, as the mix is come to the position of unmixed by the power of bhakti itself, then the mix of motive can be cleansed and dissipated. It has to be, because bhakti in principle is unmixed. Or purity is the force. Tivra. Purity is the force. And so if you're not pure, take up that which will purify. But purification means the mix is gone. And there's one thing left. Krishna Eka Sharana. And one last thing I want to repeat. Jiva Goswami's definition of desirelessness from, doesn't say which, probably Bhakti Sandarbha. Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra Svasukhatvam. It's all with a dash, and so it's like one word. It's a long word. Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra Svasukhatvam. Matra. My memory serves me right, that means in a friendly manner, in a pleasing manner. So with the contemplation, this is everything to do with intention. The contemplation that Krishna should be pleased. And then focus it more, not just contemplation, the intention, striving that Krishna alone should be pleased. That's desirelessness. That's a desire, but it's not a material desire. Material desire is mixed, or even without Krishna's desire. But pure desire, pure consciousness, or desirelessness is the cultivation, the friendly cultivation that Krishna should be pleased. It's Jiva another way of saying what Rupa Goswami says about the definition of bhakti. Anyavilashadushanyam jnana karma janavritam. It's another way of saying the same. Desirelessness is that. No mix. Bhakti has the power to bring one to unmixed. It's not mechanical, it's not automatic, there's not a timer on it, and when the bell rings, you're cooked. You have no more desire. But it brings one to that position. The forcefulness, the tivra capacity of bhakti can bring one to that position. Subtle, but it's nice understanding. See if there's some discussion. Nice section of the Bhagavatam.
So Guru Maharaj, in the purport Prabhupada says, doing the outlook of doing good to others in the form of society, community, family is a partial manifestation of the same original feelings that we have in serving towards the happiness of Supreme Lord. So my two-part question is, we see it all the time, where um, people are trying their best to take their attention from themselves and trying to serve others. But I'm, I'm having hard time in understanding how is that a partial manifestation? Is it because of the attention being away from ourselves to serving others, or
Well, you said it. The source is missed, and therefore it's not what real love is, but it's directionally moving away from abject selfishness. It's a partial manifestation.
um, the second part is, we see that in today's youth and especially students, there is so much going on, but they're encouraged to do community service, um, give back to community, and all that. But I'm
What was
also
the second thing? Community service
and giving back to community,
giving back to community,
and the schools are, spending
promoting that.
and I'm noticing that, you know, today's youth, especially, they have this. I mean, everything that they are doing is centered around immediate gratification. You do something and then you get something out of it. Um, and so I'm wondering, when everything that they do, the result that they're getting is a material result. How does this, or how can this be encouraged and um, further along, so we can take them to the next level of really doing this from a selfless platform, not because you get something out of it in return?
There's two things. One is, without a center, it's futile. And the center being the source. But how willing are people to take the connection of that center? But your question was how to. And I'm indicating it's futile without a center. I'll just repeat this using two different examples. Here's one. It was very interesting discussion. Yogi Bhajan, a very powerful, influential Sikh leader, was visiting in Hawaii. Prabhupada was in Hawaii. He came to see Prabhupada at the Hawaii temple, inviting Prabhupada to come to a conference that he was planning in New Mexico on bringing spiritual leaders together and let them get together and love one another. That was his language. Prabhupada interrupted him and said, "They will never." And then he explained, Yogi Bhajan didn't stop with that. He was saying, well, at least we have to try. And then Prabhupada was saying that without a center, without there being an accepting of a center, people may get together and express their view and hear another's view and leave, and there's no change. It's the same principle as the United Nations. It's cosmetic. So there's no, the intention is okay, but it's not going to happen because there isn't acknowledgement of a center. What's the center? The source of everything. By whatever name and label and ism, it's the principle. So your question is how to take that which education system is encouraging educators to encourage the youth to do community service and give back what you've received, how to move it to the next level. That's your question.
Yes.
Without a center, it's just cosmetic. And it's not like spit on it or something, or call it a bad name, or kick it or something. It's just they're not going to accept the center. It's a sentiment. And then, like the mind, that like the wind blows and the air moves and the mind moves, and later there's going to be another focus and another focus. Yes, that it's how the material energy moves. And educators have decided, for whatever the reasons, I'm sure it's, do good for humanity by helping our young people understand, do something for humanity. Improve the quality of life by service to others. But the target is wrong. They don't know who they are. They don't know who the Supreme is. They don't know the goal of life. And they miss the target altogether. And then Prabhupada, Andha Nitangri Upagiyamana, the blind leading the blind. The teachers are blind, and the students are following the teachers, at least to some degree, trend-wise. And it's, where's it taking them? Where's a blind person going to take other blind people? So how to take it to the next level? The educators need to be educated. Know what the self is, and what's real, the interest of the self. But they won't. I mean, largely they won't, because their attachment is the temporary, the body, their family, their society, their the body and extensions, the geometric extensions out of the body and I and mind, because the center is off. So when the educators are enlightened, then it can go to the next level. And is it going to happen? Well, slowly. And some will get it, and some won't get it. Here's a comment in response to your question. I spent some time yesterday preparing for Gita Jayanti, which is Friday. And as an example of one who became transformed by Bhagavad Gita was Nelson Mandela. And the circumstance was horrible. He was put into prison on an island and forced to do meaningless labor, meaning specifically their service every day was to go by the sea, break rocks with a hammer, and throw the broken rocks into the sea and go back to their prison cell. Every day, break rocks and throw the broken pieces into the sea. Meaningless labor. Demeaning, purposefully. This is what we do to people like you. And what we had done wrong was he had views that differed, governmental views that differed from the prevailing system at the time. So he was arrested and put in this island prison. Fortunately for him, there was an Indian man who was part of the same governmental party affiliation. He was also in the prison, and this Indian man taught him Bhagavad Gita to the point where he could recite most of the Bhagavad Gita from heart, and it governed his life. And then he later became, a martyr, became the president of the country, and led with the vision of Bhagavad Gita, at least the vision. So where are people going to get, where are the educators and leaders going to get that vision? From someone who has that vision. Are they willing to submit? I don't think so. I mean, by Krishna's statement in Bhagavad Gita, it's not likely to happen. But what did Prabhupada do to take things to the next level? He made every effort to help educators and leaders to get it and then lead. I'm just listening this morning to an educator in London, and he was appealing to the educator. You want to do good. Don't water the leaves of the tree. Water the root of the tree. Come and study with us, and then become a teacher, because then you can change by watering the root, not by watering the leaves. Because he was doing good for society. And, Prabhupada was not speaking ill of him, just misdirected. You want to do this? Here's how you do it. Learn this teaching. Anyway, that's how to take it to the next level. Educators need to be educated. Manusha Nam Sahasreshu. Do you know some Bhagavad Gita verses? Do you know that one? Manusha Nam Sahasreshu Kasya Jatati Siddhaye. Doesn't ring a bell, no? Yatatamapi Siddhanam Kasyan Mam Binti Tatvataha. So out of many, of mankind, many, hardly one is interested in reality. They're interested in something, non-reality versions. And then of those who have achieved realization, hardly one knows me in truth. Krishna, that's what the verse is saying. So is it going to be, statistically not likely? What to do? Do it anyways. Because it's pleasing to Krishna. And that's what we do. That's this verse. And some will get it. And those that get it, they can lead thousands. Or more than thousands, Nelson Mandela. I mean, not that he was a perfect person, but he principle-centered. He got it. It saved his life from going mad. And then was able to lead others because it was deep inside, the place of shelter for him. Anyway, it's rare, but it's to be done. That's our line of disciplic succession. It's our mandate. We move in this direction, and we try to encourage others to move in this direction. That is, to understand what is the self and what's in the interest of the self and how to accomplish it. Most people aren't going to get it, but you do it anyways. And some people will get it. And that's how the direction can move from degradation to elevation on the spiritual platform. It's compelling. Not easy, but it's compelling. It's the method. And we're not great acharyas, but we're, that the man that was in jail with Nelson Mandela, I don't know his name, but he had faith and he was able to infect, in a positive way, one man. So, one at a time. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yes, sir. Maharaj ki